So let's see how easy it is to make a drop-down menu with ButtonPlus2. First of all, we'll add a button to the page. Let's put it in the middle just for the purposes of this and give it a custom style, perhaps a gradient if you want as well. You notice that I've just put one column underneath with lots of padding. That's just because there's nothing else on the page and we need to make room for the drop-down to drop into. So to add a drop-down, we just select Drop-Down Menu from the ButtonPlus Add Child button, and you notice that the drop-down is all highlighted in red, and the drop-down menu's Add Child button is red as well, so it's easy to distinguish it from the ButtonPlus one, which is blue. We've already got one link, we can add another link. The link text can be changed just as normal by clicking on it. So we'll call this another link. We can add other elements into the drop down, such as a foundation divider. We might want to add a heading. So let's say this is a heading. Now headings, let's make this bold as well. Headings don't have hover colors because that would make them look like links, and we make a link into a heading just by clicking the heading checkbox, so that won't get any hover colors and it's just a heading within the other links. So we can add another link here, and let's make this a badge image link. So we can drop a small icon here, and I like to make this 16 pixels high because that's the size, that's 1 rem text in foundation, so it'll match the text quite nicely. And then we can duplicate this a couple of times just so that we can drop a few different colored images in and make it look a bit nicer. There we go. So we've got our rudimentary drop down menu. Let's just give it a bit of custom padding. I like to increase the right hand side to 16. I think it just looks a bit better, especially with the badge images. And let's see what we've got. And there's our drop down menu with our heading. You see the heading has no hover, everything else has its hover colors. The other nice thing you can do when you're using badge images is, if you had a link in amongst your badge images, we want the text all to be aligned. So we just add a badge spacer, and if we make that the same width as the images were, those ones happen to be square, then we get our link text all lined up nicely, even though that one hasn't got a badge. Now, the next thing we can look at is making a nested drop down. So we'll have a second level drop down, and we simply do that by adding another button plus with a drop down. So let's have the link there, and we'll call this, put the button text as drop down just so that it stands out. Now the first thing you notice is it doesn't look like a button. The drop down has automatically styled it as a link, so it fits in with the rest. You can turn this off if you want an actual button anywhere for individual ones. And let's make that into a combi button, so we get our little arrow, which we can do on the top one as well. Simple as just selecting combi, just indicate that it's a drop down. So then we add a drop down, and you can quite clearly see with the red now that we've got a drop down within a drop down. And let's put a couple of links in this one and have a preview. And there's our second level drop down. Now the other thing you can do is actually drop one you've already made. So if we copy that drop down, that button and all its drop downs into there. So now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of drop down all instantaneously. And you can see now we've got our first level, second level. This is the button we just dropped in, which is going to start from the top again, if you like. It's this same menu and the 4th level. The alignments will all sort themselves out if they get too close to the edge of the screen. You can of course customize the alignment left or right that you want. Hovers can be used to activate the drop downs instead of clicks. Now in the case of this, we need to set hover on all the menus. That's not inherited. So let's just change them all to hover. And now they open on hover, and you notice that we can go somewhat diagonally. We don't have to go straight across and down. We can go diagonally without it disappearing. So that's nice and usable. And these, you can see I didn't add any padding to that one, so the hover effects go right to the edge. These hover effects, of course, degrade nicely to touch events, so taps on mobile devices, because we don't like hover on touch devices. So let's talk about styling. If we want to change the style of a drop down, we've got lots of options for the links background. There's some more for when it's stacked in a menu, which we'll get to in another video. But if we apply a background, a grey background to this drop down, let's make it a bit lighter. I think that's better. Then you'll notice it's not been applied to the others. Well, all we need to do is go into the style settings for the nested drop downs and change them to inherit. And as we do that, you will see each time they get the inherited color. So now if on the top one we change the link color to blue, then the link color all the way down gets changed to blue. So it's really easy to style large numbers of them. You can of course have them different if you want, but it's a bit weird. You can change the border, the corners, you can add shadows. We can control the links alignment, we can control the button alignment, which is important if you've got an actual button in the menu rather than it being styled as a link. And we can use fonts from Font Pro. We can either inherit the font size from the button, or we can specify custom fonts. And there are lots of other options for sizing, and as we'll see, there's a mega menu for when it's being used in button bar.